All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Fruits Basket, Season 2, Episode 9.
Okay.
We're getting a Kyo episode, perchance.
A Kyo episode, possibly. Yeah, because Akito wants to summon him.
Right.
He very much seemed to notice the bond between Kyo and Toru, which is worrying because Akito has a thing against bonds of that type.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, I'm hoping that it just ends up being something where he's like, I'll, take away your bracelet or something, and Kyo's like, well, Toru already accepts me either way, or something like that. So, joke's on you.
Yeah,
but
the scary thing is more that the fact that Akito might be able to leverage other people of the family against him.
Might be able to leverage other people of the family, might be able to break the bracelet, because we had that whole foreshadowing bit of like, hey, this is a really rare thing from the bones of some old monk and soaked in blood, and so I really don't want that to be a thing, because that would be too cruel to Kyo.
And also, Akito hasn't done much here.
No.
Like, if anything, it's
been rather satisfying.
It's been rather satisfying to see how impotent he is. And if anyone would probably get him the most riled up other than Yuki, it would be Kyo.
Right.
And given that Shigure seemed to sense like, ooh, is this a storm I see coming? And then Hattori's like, you're really enjoying this, aren't you? Like, Hattori is probably the most even-keeled of, like, all the Zodiacs in general.
Sure.
Like, but the idea that he's like, hey, like, what have you got planned? And the idea that Akito is like, no, I'm going to do this.
Right.
I really would just like to make sure that Toru is not caught in the crossfire of this.
Indeed.
Because that's where things can get really scary, I think.
Yeah.
Akito is someone that we've never really, I think, fully seen his true form, if you know what I mean. No. Like obviously,
we know he's a piece of shit.
But obviously he's a piece of shit, but more the idea of like, I think we've only seen the effects of it, really.
Right. We don't truly know why everyone else actually lets him do the things that he does. We have our assumptions and things like that, and ideas, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
So I'm both excited to potentially find out, because that means we're closer to defeating him and having him be put in his place.
But there's 3 seasons. Same time, we're not defeating him until the end of the series, dude.
But we also had a bit with Rin in the previous episode, which is very interesting.
Yeah. She took some of Toru's clothes when she, lost hers, because transforming into a big ass horse has some uncomfortable or just inconvenient aspects to it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But she was very pissed off in general, and didn't want them to tell anyone that she was here.
Right, and
which
Yuki
is
was
interesting.
Yuki was very understanding. Like he felt very empathetic in a really like he kind of figured out his own shit, you know, because that's where a lot of the focus has been this last season. But her situation being a little bit more unique, and I saw some very clear differences from the way that he interacted with her versus the way Shigure did, where Shigure was a little bit more kind of blasé and kind of sarcastic.
Cold.
Yeah, maybe a little cold as well. Yuki had like a little bit of just like a no.
Yeah,
this is okay.
Like he didn't take her shit of like, you're just Akito's toy and all that stuff.
He was just like, and your point is
right.
What are you trying to do here? Like, So I'm curious to see if she'll maybe bring things up a little bit within the chaos of this situation, potentially blowing up in this episode.
Right.
Because Hatsuharu is here. Shigure is here. We've also got some of the younger kids here.
Yep.
Like Hiro and Kisa. But then we also have Momiji. Like there's a lot that could happen with just Akito being like, I want to see the cat, the cursed one. And it's like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm both excited and dreading this episode.
Yeah. So, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. All right, well, Fruits Basket just decided to hit us with a train.
Yeah.
And that episode.
That episode was, not gonna lie, really hard.
That was really hard, yeah.
It's something where
we literally did the curve. Like, we went at the high to Kyo is basically accepted and admitted, to the audience and himself
that he loves Toru.
He's in love. He is absolutely in love with Toru. Smitten by her.
And then we go down
all
to
the way down to the depths.
And then we come back up.
We come back up in different ways.
Yeah.
That's important, is that the pit did something. The pit did something, but we did come back up.
Yeah,
and the idea of where we came back up is not as important as the fact that we are going back up.
Right.
And that's
and that's and this episode is going to be the discussion for this episode is going to be an interesting one because this show does things that makes me very uncomfortable, right? Because seeing this level of abuse over a sustained period of time with the other characters around not just not doing anything, but in fact helping it, of saying, all right, now go on into your abuser, right? And we're going to sit out here. When they've also, at the very least, we know Yuki has been a subject of that same abuse, right?
Exactly.
And we don't know what Akito's supernatural thing is that is keeping them under his the dancing on his strings, right?
Right.
And as a result of that, it really, 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 really puts them in a bad light because now I'm not just pissed at Akito. I'm not just wanting to say fuck Akito. I'm wanting to say fuck Shigure, fuck Yuki. Because what are you guys doing, right? Even though they don't know the exact things that Akito's saying. So And so it's a very messy emotional thing for me, right? Because I don't want to see Kyo be made to believe that yes, it is your fault that your mother died, right? Like all of these things that were brought up here. And while we have that bit at the end with him having that like it's a very kind of like emotional realization kind of like when he sees Toru again, he's still thinking, all right, I guess I'm going to go into the cage, right? So
we'll get into this episode in its entirety, and this is a discussion, y'all, that just is going to be a long one. So just buckle up for that. I don't know. We don't plan out how long these discussions are going to be.
Exactly.
I can just tell this one's going to be a long one. First things first here. This was an episode that focused on Kyo almost entirely. Entirely. To the point where we went really hard into the first person perspective of his own thoughts. Like, a lot of his own thoughts on things here. What was really impressive, if you will, is actually what they were subtly inferring, in a lot of ways, by the fact that a lot of his thoughts were kind of on display for us, the audience, is that this episode was very much about what is being communicated directly or indirectly.
Sure.
One, Kyo really loves Toru. In fact, he's loved her ever since, like, that New Year's, like, sunrise, whatever that was, like back in season 1.
Right.
Like that was a huge moment for him to fall in love with Toru.
Yep.
Now, over the course of the series, he's fallen even more in love with her. Every time she says his name, his heart beats faster.
That was such a good way to showcase that he is in love rather than just having him say, I think I'm in love with Toru. Right. And that was wonderfully done. Because
she occupies his thoughts.
Right. Because some of the stuff that Akito said, in a way, there's kernels of truth to it.
Yes.
In that, yes, love is silly, love is stupid. There isn't any real reason to it, right? It can be something that defies all, rational thought, right?
Yeah.
And yet, it's also undeniable.
Right. So, I think that having this general perspective of a lot of Kyo's thoughts being on display, whereas generally speaking, we focus more on Toru's thoughts.
Yeah.
We generally see her in that main character light. Well, no, for this episode, it's Kyo's turn.
Yep.
And this clears up a lot of things here. One, that Kyo is in love with her, which was relatively obvious, but no.
It's him admitting it to himself.
It's him admitting it to himself, but not only that, like, this is not a new thing. This is an old, deep thing that's been going on for maybe even almost a year at this point.
Yeah.
Now, at the end of the episode, he not just only has accepted that he loves her,
right,
but he's gone through the Akito trench, basically.
Yep.
Come back out, still loves her, still wants to be with her, still reaches out to her, and shows care for her in a way that is his classic, why aren't you taking care of yourself more?
Right.
Think about yourself. Come on. And that's incredible because I think that shows the strength of Kyo in that he's like, I will weather this. Sure. I can't predict the future as to whether or not I'm going to beat, Yuki in this stupid bet that I have going with Akito.
Right.
But regardless of that, I want to be with you for whatever this time is that I'll have. Now, I think this is setting up a very dramatic, painful moment where I think Kyo is going to get caged up at some point. That's very much something that they were setting up with the previous wielder or holder of the cat. But also the idea of it being a thing where if it does happen, Toru could just visit him.
Well, sure.
Like there's so many things in which that is not like an end point for Kyo, but actually a point where we can see Akito's threats as actually lessened and lessened and lessened over time. Because it's like, yeah, yell at me, scream at me, slap me. Kyo did what Yuki wanted him to do. He didn't lash out. I mean, he did grab, I think, Akito's hand at that one point.
Yeah. Oh no, he stopped Akito from beating on him. What reprehensible behavior.
Yeah. I think, remember, the reason why he's saying this is not because he doesn't think fuck Akito.
Right.
He doesn't want Toru to get, because the reason why Toru would get, into any kind of shit with this by some kind of Akito sneak attack of some kind is because he thinks that, Kyo loves Toru.
Right. Yep, and that is the thing that both times we've seen it being the reason for why he goes apeshit on somebody. And again, this is a thing that's like it's not a deal breaker by any stretch. It's more of just a fervent request of the show, which of course is not going to change the show at all. But please let us know exactly what it is that is making it so that these people will actually put up with Akito. The fact that Akito can just make a bet of, and then we'll cage you up if you can't do this thing, and Kyo is actually willing to go along with it, right? Like, yes, let yourself be imprisoned for the rest of your life because of the fact that you were born, right? Like, that's I get that Kyo could get into a very low place where he thinks he potentially deserves that or something, right?
Sure.
But he's certainly not going to be in that state forever.
Yeah.
And even more so, why would the other people in the family be like, yes, this is a thing that is legit and good, and and we'll put up with this. We'll let this happen, Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. I also they made a deal of having Toru make a guess that Akito would be the rooster.
Right,
and
which
I don't really buy that.
I think that's a specific misdirect because of the fact that she doesn't know about Kureno.
Right.
I don't think she knows that Kureno is a zodiac. So as a result of that, then it must be Akito. There you go.
Yeah, and that's why we've been operating on the idea that there's something going on with the fact that Akito is leading them.
Right.
Not necessarily a member of the Zodiac, and potentially even the being that summoned them in the deep lore.
Yeah.
So, Akito could be his own possessor of something that's immortal or something that's
has some kind of supernatural power over the Zodiacs or whatever.
Or just at the very least has control over the Zodiacs.
Right, exactly.
But we also got some specific inferred things there. There's things that Akito doesn't know. Akito cannot sense the thoughts of
that's true.
Of Kyo.
Yep.
That is just a hard thing that he does not have.
Right. Not Shigure either. Otherwise, oh boy.
Oh yeah, of course. But I think what we're doing here with every moment we see Akito being his horrible self.
Yep.
We are showing also what are the limits of Akito. When Kyo started talking about how she accepted him in his monstrous form.
Oh yeah, it was like
Akito was like, no, shut up.
Yeah, that was like more damage being done to Akito than any amount of physical punishment. Yeah.
And that was the kind of shit where I realized that this whole scene is Akito's desperation.
Sure,
because he actually acknowledged Kyo. By inviting him on any level, he acknowledges that Kyo is either a problem.
Sure.
Or something that he respects.
Right. Yeah.
And
okay.
Bakemono. And it's like, oh yeah, really? Yeah. Who's the monster here? You're just projecting a bit too hard?
Yeah.
I think the thing that's actually the most power that Kyo could remove from Akito here, and this is something that I really want to be sensitive with here, is accepting the idea that because he's a monster, that is the reason because of his state, because of that form state, that is the reason why his mom killed herself.
Right. Because
that is the reason. The difference is that you are not at fault for that form, Kyo.
Exactly.
So Akito is right in that you, as a cat monster,
without you, Mufasa would still be, if not, Mufasa would still be alive.
Right, and it's like, yes, because Mufasa loved Simba. Yes.
Right. Yeah. That's the reason why your mom didn't try to kill you.
Yes.
Because even in that fucked up mental state where she's like, I can't deal with the fact that my son is like this, I'm going to take my own life, that was still preferable to killing her child.
Right. Exactly.
And
so this is something where Kyo needs to almost have what I would call like the half-assed demon in your ear, kind of giving you the run of like, you're worthless, you're actually the enemy here, you're the most evil thing that is ever. Okay, yeah, are you
still
done?
Going?
Are you done?
Yeah.
Are you done? No. Just let it. Yep. Okay. Cool. Then he thinks of Kazuma. And Kazuma is like one of the most iron bulwarks of all this fucking story.
I gotta say, as far as like, because anytime a story goes into like, hey, we're gonna have emotional pain, right? Emotional damage. There is this other thing of like, hey, you gotta understand your audience and how much emotional damage control you want to do.
Yes.
God, I am so glad that this episode ended with a positive upturn, even though there were some things that I wished had also been a part of that positive upturn, because I would not have been able to handle it if the episode ended with just Akito saying all this stuff, Kyo believing it, and then just going off on his own, right?
Again, remember, he's lying to Akito.
No.
Like, a lot of it.
No, the stuff of I hate Toru, that was the one thing that was the lie, right? Because then there were the internal thoughts where he was saying, yes, it's my fault, yes, I should stay away from her, etc., all this stuff. And then when he goes up and he sees her, then it's like what am I talking about? Right?
Yeah. I think also what's important to really like come into kind of focus here.
Yeah.
Is that anything that he says specifically to Akito.
Right. That's all part of the act.
Is potentially all part of the act, is all bullshit to try and diffuse and de-escalate. Because obviously, if you have someone that's an abuser in power over you.
Right.
So you cannot fight back. The worst thing that you can do here is to give them basically
more
fuel
ammo.
And more ammo because you're powerless.
Starve them out basically and let them just fizzle.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, the best thing would be to remove yourself from the situation of the abuser.
But I guess that's not an option either.
Yeah. So now that we've exhausted those two options, third option here is just let them spin their own fucking wheels. Let them grind their gears until they literally just have nothing left. Now, this is fucked up. Yeah. That's the option that he has to go with.
We're basically, like, all the episodes with Akito are basically episodes of, let's watch an abuser run rampant. Like, that's... And that's...
that's not entertaining.
That's not entertaining, and that's something you have to be very careful about. How much you do that... deciding like how to do that, if to do that, like, so in the fact that the show is deciding to do that, it's like, okay, this is some very
if any story is going to do this, though, use the supernatural idea of the Zodiac as a groundwork for bringing in a fantastical element that pulls that light enough bit of separation where you can have the
indirection.
At this point, really, this is the part that I think is actually like really, really important here, is that Akito is not just the abuser. He is the leader. He is literally the one in position of power here. Thus, like Jacob said, anyone that perpetuates his power is complicit in the acts of abuse. At this point, literally every single Zodiac member is complicit in this.
And that's why it's something where I never want to say that a show has to do something.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
But I would say that I feel pretty comfortable saying that here. Akito has to have some kind of actual control over them. Otherwise...
But I want to bring up the idea here that the fantastical element is to remove us just a little bit from
the real life
elements,
situations that this is
exactly
portraying. Yeah,
but the reason why the show is going so hard into this is because we have to have some story out there that will actually go into these real life situations and talk about it. And show actually the fact that not only does this happen, this is common. This is not
This might be a particular flavor, you know.
But actually the idea of having the leader of a household, a leader of if you will, a clan, like a multi-family, multi-generational thing there, be a horrific abuser. That's not some special sauce. That's not the supernatural thing here. That's the aspect that's like, no, this happens all the time.
And there could easily be like, because like if you're talking about like a smaller structure, right? You know, like let's say, you know, the children can't necessarily fight back, right? Or a couple, or you know, or something like that, right?
Abusive husband.
Yep, exactly.
Sure.
It's, you know, there's the people that are being abused where it's of course they're the victims, right? So they're not necessarily going to be in places where they can fight back. If they can, wonderful, right? But you know, they might not be able to, right? But what about all the people maybe, you know, at those family reunions or something like that, where they can kind of tell that something's going on, but they turn a blind eye and shit like that, right? That I feel like is kind of a good example of what the older people in the Soma family are doing here. But or would be doing if it wasn't for the fact that there's probably some supernatural like control stuff.
Well,
right?
Okay. Hold on. The big thing that I think is important here is that we know that Akito is not the rooster. That's at this point. They're almost doing this just for the reveal
to show where Toru's headspace is at.
But no. He's the being that actually like.
Right. So it totally makes sense for him to have that kind of supernatural control.
And we know it's not telepathy at the very least.
So, exactly.
So on that respect, I kind of would like to move on from that as a discussion point. It doesn't matter. The point right now is that Kyo actually like had those moments where he took in the despair that Akito was
His words got into him.
His words got into him, and he was reminded of this through his father. His father specifically sat him down. And this is in some ways like the part that's really fucked here, is that a father has very, very specific role, responsibilities, just as much as the mother does. But like in this case here, where he's the only family directly that Kyo has. It is so important that he gives him the help, the assistance.
Right. He could have been Kazuma.
He could have literally been Kazuma.
And it wasn't just that he wasn't Kazuma, he was Akito 2.0.
He was in some ways actually worse than Akito.
Yes.
Like I actually want to bring up that he's actually potentially worse.
Because Akito's okay, you're some piece of shit.
Yeah,
you know?
Akito's a piece of shit that really doesn't have any relationship with Kyo. Like there's nothing lost for Kyo if he doesn't get love from Akito. Fuck Akito.
Yeah.
So, with the dad, though, that's something where we now have, and I love that they're giving us this. We're showing that there were actually potentially two parents in different environments that were helping Kyo.
And
oh my god! Oh my god!
Yeah, that was something where it was like, okay, amidst all of the like, yes, let's see, you know, Kazuma and you know and Toru in Kyo's head as he's wrestling with all of this.
We saw a third person.
And holy shit!
Let's go. I have to like analyze these scenes here again because they blinked by so quickly. Oh my god! Now here we go. I understand. Back then I pretended I understand. I actually didn't. Or Master, I understand now. Back then I pretended I didn't, but I understand now. I understand that as many in this world reject me, there are just as many people who reach out their hand to me. So Toru's mom. This very much seems like Toru's mom, but maybe younger.
Right. It's a different haircut than what we usually see when she was like, like the shorter haircut that she had when she was raising Toru.
Because this is not his mom.
Oh yeah, definitely not. No. If anything, it might be something where maybe like Toru's mom was like the sister of Kyo's mom or something like that. You know?
Now, Yeah, I feel like the big thing is more just the idea that when he finally looks into the window here, he sees what looks like it's probably Kagura.
No, I think I thought that was Toru.
Black hair, dude.
That's brown. Isn't it brown?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I just didn't look at it closely enough. Yeah. So basically, if I'm understanding this right, he had a really rough day where he probably ran out of the estate or what have you.
Yeah.
And she finds him. He's like, "Hey, are you lonely?" She's never coming back. Come here, Squirt.
Yeah.
A man's promise. I couldn't keep it. She's my treasure. Shows picture of Toru. But she bloomed right in front of me. I feel like I could have done so much more for her. And now we're focusing on Toru. She continued to bloom. A small flower. Yeah. So we now have the tie-in, potentially, to the way in which both Yuki and Kyo were
connected to Toru before her memory got wiped.
Right. But they were connected through different avenues.
Right.
Yuki was connected to Toru, but Kyo was potentially connected to
her mom. Which would make additional sense why he felt bad at on the anniversary of her death when they went to the grave.
Right.
So it's possible that he also potentially, like, because of him interacting with her, that played some role in, like, Toru's mom dying somehow. Like, because the way it's been set up is that it was, a freak accident, right? It's like, oh shit, right? No one could have expected this. Toru's mom's gone, right?
Yeah.
But if it wasn't... Or even if it was something where it's like he was going to, get hit by a car or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And she said, who knows, right?
Whatever it is. The idea is that she's gone, but she did something for him way back then. Oh, and in some ways, what's really cool about this is this gives almost this this picture of Kyo and Yuki seeing Toru in this light, if you will, before they necessarily even knew her.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, like, it's one of those things where anytime you have, like, oh, these people knew her before, well, that raises certain questions, right? Because it's not just, okay, they recognize her or something like that.
Right.
What was their relationship before? Because the people that they are now and the influence that she is having on them is very different than the people that they used to be. Yeah. And given that they, like, the place that they were in, say, when we got introduced to them in the show, that means that she, at the very least, didn't have the same kind of influence on them probably back then that she's having on them now, or, like, it was sort of, like, covered over by time and additional hurts and things like that from other things.
Yeah, for sure.
But it just makes me very excited for the eventual, like, full backstory episodes, like UUUUGHH's backstory episodes, but, like, with Kyo or Yuki focus.
Yeah, for the whole way in which Toru's origins into the connection with this family actually happened. Now, okay, this is something where, in some ways, what I'm reading into this, Kyo never knew Toru. He never actually got to meet her necessarily. It's possible.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
It might not have been shown yet in the flashbacks.
But it did seem like he was just, watching of, like, oh, that's maybe a potential friend,
Yeah. But it's more than that. This was a relationship between mother and child. That's what it actually looks like.
Oh.
That's what love between family members looks like. So he was taught at that young age. And that's why he's the first person potentially even to get out of this. Not because he's the cat, necessarily.
Gotcha. I like it.
Because the cat thing has its own lore stuff to it.
Sure.
But it's also one of the reasons maybe why, like, he's actually potentially the most free of any of the Somas.
Yep.
So I think that might have been inferred there. But also now we have two characters that have those, past memories with Toru and her influence on their life in some small way. And now we have to know exactly the details of where Hattori came in and, wiped things, clean a little bit. Because it's definitely more of something where he did this for Toru. Like, that's
right.
That's something where Toru was the one that mainly got the the memories removed.
Right. Everyone else still remembers.
Everyone else, I think, still remembers everything just fine. Yeah. Yep. So that's just a whole other level of fun complexity, because then if you have any kind of love triangle stuff here, you have also different things in which Toru means to them.
Yep.
While still both of them are kind of that source of light.
Yeah, there's another reason why I really love the fact that Kyo has this additional like connection that we didn't know about, or we had hintings of, but now it's like being confirmed to Toru's mom, because there can be a sense sometimes with like anytime I see in a romance story where it's like, this person actually knew the person that they have feelings for way back when, and the person doesn't remember for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Well, there's the childhood friend where it's both people remember.
Crush is what I mean.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Right. The chance encounter that really meant a lot to them and things like that. That's something where, since I'm assuming that Yuki is going to be the canon end, if we even get a canon end for the romantic subplot, that can sometimes feel like a I saw them first kind of a thing. Like maybe that sounds really silly, but
if anything, no, I think that if anything, Kyo has just as much chance, if you will, of ending up with Toru. The big thing I think is actually that they're basically saying that in some ways it doesn't really matter in the immediate sense who's going to end up with who.
Right.
It's that
because this show is not a romance show at its core.
Well, no. There's romance in it, but just the idea that the struggle of the characters right now is not, who's going to win the romance. In some ways, they also kind of broke a little bit of that idea of why they're so, like Kyo specifically, is so I want to fight you constantly.
Yeah, that is a great recontextualization for something that just seems sort of like a comedy shtick, kind of.
It's something that could have been absolutely written after the fact of that being the thing.
Totally.
But the fact that he was so dogged about it to the point where it's just, no, it's actually kind of almost like an obsession. Like it's way deeper.
It's
of a problem.
Compulsion, a curse, if you will, that Akito's put on him, basically.
Yeah, and it literally is. He has to do this.
Right. And that also made me wonder, like, because what if the way that Kyo ended up not going into the cage, for instance, was a thing of no, he never beats Yuki in a fight. But he wins over Toru, and then Yuki goes to Akito, and he's like, "You think he didn't beat me? He totally did."
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't think that's going going to happen.
That could absolutely work.
It just like the thought of it came to mind while watching this episode, and I was like, "Ooh, that would be a wonderful way to like
I love it.
have Akito basically eat shit, but in not just the thing of I beat Yuki in a fight, because that's fairly like arbitrary, right?
Right.
But it's like no, specifically on the thing that Akito always flips out whenever people find out about it, or whenever he finds out about it,
Right.
But
I think that with this recent Yuki focus, they are trying to move him a little bit more into the personal development side of things rather than the romance side of things.
Okay.
And I think a little bit of that is more on the idea that his kind of fixation on Toru, it needs to be reevaluated. It needs to be kind of reduced back so that he can kind of build it maybe a little bit in a healthier way. Because I feel like in some ways, Kyo's just gushing in the bookends of this episode in a very Fruits Basket kind of, I don't know if this is writing or directing style, because this is an adaptation of, source material, but Kyo is in love with Toru.
Yep.
Yuki has never, ever said anything like that.
Right, not even to himself.
Not even to himself.
Yeah, and now granted, that just happened for Kyo here, right?
Right.
But on the topic of what you were saying of like Yuki needing to maybe reevaluate his relationship with Toru, I feel like it's one of those things where at the start of the show, Yuki was too dependent, and so then his growth has been
just realizing that he's been too dependent.
Right. Yeah. Well, and not necessarily just on Toru, but so he's been looking to find his own independence, right? Yep. And that's a really good arc for him to go on. Whereas Kyo has been in the situation of being too independent, right? Yep. And so now he needs to realize that it's okay to be vulnerable. Yeah, exactly. Right. You can depend on other people, and that's okay, right? And so that's
And that's why the ultimate end for them is to clasp hands as brothers, basically.
Right, sure.
And be like, yeah, we'll face this however it goes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'm really excited for that. But right now, we're going to have some suffering. We're going to have some pain. And I think that's really the point of this episode, is that we're going to have seasons where the flower is broken.
Yep.
It is shattered. It is stomped into the ground. It will not be reborn for a season.
Sure.
Haha, pun intended.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's still a flower. Do you know
Right.
the nature of plants?
They grow back.
Is that they have cycles of rebirth. They
Yep.
literally die every winter.
Yeah.
Because she didn't accept your confession on Christmas Day, but
Right.
it do be like that sometimes, bro. But there's always spring. There's always spring.
That's right. Man,
There's
this episode.
so many little details.
This episode took a lot out of me. Like,
yeah, I feel it.
And that's with thank you again, having the positive like stuff at the end to kind of lift the spirits. But
yeah, I really feel like. Okay, so this is something I wanted to get at here. There's a lot of little details that I feel like they were foreshadowing here. The part where you have the "I'll never forgive you," and then it's just the blood there. That's his mom, right? But we've never seen this image before.
Yeah, I'm not sure because his mom had longer hair, like longer than that at the very least. So I don't know who that is.
So, I want to bring up the idea that because this scene was, prepped, if you will, by Kyo, having his running towards her moment, this is like the classic love story moment where he's realizing just how important she is, but not only that, like what brought him to this place. And he's like, there's so much more I could do for her, but she's this tiny little flower, and I need to protect her, and I need to sacrifice, like Cosmo was saying, I need to be willing to sacrifice everything for her here. Is there anything that would actually be worth that? Yes, absolutely. It's answered immediately in this scene. My precious, precious Toru! It's just beautiful. And then they share this cute little moment. But as they're starting to walk back up, yeah, it's good to be back. I don't want anything else from you. I don't want to trample you ever again. At some point, I wish we could always be together. And then this part here. At some point, I had hoped we could always be together wherever I ended up.
Right.
I feel like this is saying, at some point, past tense. I had hoped, also past tense. We could always be together wherever I ended up in the future.
Right. And this was the thing that made me be like, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Because there's something that can happen with a lot of romance shows where basically the person self-sabotage
yes.
And when it because I get that Akito was going to do his whole attempted sabotage thing, right? But I do not want to see him actually win. If it's something where the sabotage is truly self-sabotage in origin and that's where it comes from, then okay, that's a problem of the person. But when it's something from an external force that then ends up being able to take root and it's not able to be defeated, then that feels much less like a character failing and more like this character's story just doesn't have a happy ending, right?
Well, okay, but there's ways you can have conflict in a romance.
No, totally.
It doesn't have to be melodrama. It can be the fact that Akito has some really fucked up shit, and the reason why he does things has reasons to it, even though he's absolutely fucked up.
Right. What I'm saying is that this was something where it felt like a resignation of sorts for Kyo of. I won't actually hope for that in the future.
Right. I'm going to blow your mind with how it's not that.
Okay, go for it.
What did Akito tell him about love in their scene? Basically that, who are you to fall in love? Like, you don't deserve it. Yeah. Because you killed your mother, basically. Right. That was Akito's whole, Right. And he's coming at him this way because he believes that he's in love with Toru.
Right.
And then, of course, he's able to convince Akito, no, I don't love her, I hate her, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Now, if we go from the standpoint of that this is his mother, right, that's him believing Akito's words, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And it's just a
yeah,
reminder.
even if he was doing well, the trauma of it can just flash into his head and, yeah.
Put on your headphones.
Okay.
Headphones.
All right.
I think, I haven't, like, listened to this voice closely, but... Okay, so that does sound like his mom. It does sound like his mom. But I want to bring up the idea here. The idea, potentially, because we just had, earlier in the scene, stuff with Toru's mom.
Uh-huh.
And what if this is a pattern that he's believing? He got too close to Toru's mom. And then suddenly she was gone. He's a bad luck charm monster.
Okay.
Two mothers potentially are dead because of him.
Sure.
In his perspective.
Okay.
But regardless of whether it's one or the other or both, because I don't think it really matters, but I needed to hear the voice again to make sure that wasn't some warped version of Toru's voice that he was hearing, imagining if he had told her, by the way, I might be the reason why your mom's dead, or at least he believes that on some level, and then she's like, I'll never forgive you, there's no way I can be with you, or anything like that. At some point, I'd hoped we could always be together wherever we end up. He gets that little bit of terror from this bit here. Akito says it would be a shame to have to involve her more than you have already. And then he says, I couldn't possibly wish my fate on you. I won't wish for that. So please, at least be my side for the time I have left.
Right.
Now, I think that the resignation part of that is that he can't control the bet necessarily.
Right.
That is something that, because of whatever low place that he was in there, and the fact that maybe making deals
with Akito has Akito, it's like a fey bargain or something.
Yeah, it's we have no way of knowing what that means.
Right.
But that is immutable from as far as his control is concerned right now.
Sure.
Like we don't have any we don't have anything to counteract that's a new plot device that's been brought up.
There's an element of this that could be very positive and healthy for Kyo, in that he's basically saying, hey, if this is out of my control, I will at the very least accept whatever comes. Yes. Right? I will not let that truly get to me, because I will still be me, right?
Yeah.
And I will still have the time that I have left, right? Yeah. Awesome. The thing that makes me nervous about is because then it feels like, oh, are you just resigning yourself to be locked up in a cage for the rest of your life,
Yeah. But then they have their cute little moment. Oh, what's for dinner? Fish. Oh, okay, cool. She slips, falls. Sheesh, what am I going to have to do with you? What am I going to do with you? Grabs her hand. I want to be with you until we're torn apart, until the very last moment.
Right.
Now, I will just say that in terms of like a romantic statement, this is the most romantic statement that's been said in the entire story thus far.
I would agree.
Because this is essentially saying, till death do us part. On another context.
Sure.
The idea that if you look at this just out of the idea of there being some kind
thrown
of
into a cage
or what have you.
Yeah, whatever amount of time.
He's also basically just saying, I'm yours. I think that is basically the final crescendo buildup. That's why the episode ended here.
Right.
Was we're getting this. This is basically where his story is going to take him. And I honestly think that this has actually shifted things towards Kyo's direction in terms of where things are going romantically. Is that I cannot imagine this show ending with him in a cage.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It can't.
Yeah.
Like if you feel like this is a story that has an unhappy ending, I feel like it's the literal opposite of Game of Thrones thing. If you think this has an unhappy ending,
you haven't been paying attention.
Yeah. Why is Toru the main character and not Kyo? Why is Toru the main character and not Yuki?
Right.
It's because
she will be the ray of sunshine that goes and rescues the dragon from the castle.
Right. It's not that she's going to be some superhero. It's not that she has some angelic properties. It's not even that she's really that genuine with her feelings, and thus she's this perfect ray of sunshine. It's that she is dealing with so much stuff similarly to how they are. And she's going to by the circular process of them all working through their shit together, they're all gonna come out of this much better.
Right, exactly. You know, because she had the one person near her mom, that was this wonderful good influence on her, right?
Yeah.
She's then equipped to be able to deal with the kinds of stuff that life would throw at her. And then now in this situation, she's being basically what her mom was for her, but now to the Soma family.
Right. Yes.
And so it's the wonderfully sort of optimistic, perspective on humanity that even if it's like, oh God, there's a lot of shitty stuff that happens in the world. It's like, well, maybe all it takes is the one person from somewhere to come in and, spread the love around, right?
Right. Whether they be a Kazuma, whether they be Toru,
right?
Whether they be a what was her mom's name? God damn it.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah. Whether they be Toru's lovingly wonderful mom.
How did we not write her name down?
I'm so upset we didn't write her name down.
Damn it.
But they don't need to be perfect.
Exactly.
They don't need to be doing it for even the right reasons. They don't need to have the right solution for you.
Yeah.
In some ways, they just need to be there.
Right.
And what Kyo is promising is that he will be there for her until he's literally ripped away
until
from her.
Outside of his control, he is incapable of doing
exactly.
So. Yeah.
And that is that just gets me so fired up because I kind of now want to see something really powerful come in and try to rip him away so that he's forced to basically say, fuck you.
Yeah. And
I am with her.
Right.
And you cannot stop that.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I want to see. And there was a way in which it was shown that made me worried that he wasn't going to do that. That it's all right, well,
I just I really struggle to see it that way.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I really feel like it's not even a meta thing. It's just the idea that Kyo has like multiple things that he did so well, surprisingly, in the Akito situation.
Yeah.
One, he actually kind of listened to Yuki. He swallowed his own pride.
Yep.
Which I don't think I could have done.
Oh, no.
I don't think I have even the remotest amount of strength to be able to do this.
Right, and and because I don't know this whole situation with Akito and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Not knowing that, I wouldn't even say that's good necessarily.
No. Like, it doesn't matter whether or not it's good. We can't insert ourselves into the situation
right.
and say what's
No, what I'm saying is
good.
I wouldn't try.
No.
Like,
of course, but we don't know the full situation. So let's move on. The point is that Akito gets almost so flustered and I almost want to say desperate to just drive this drill, this nasty bad dentist, quack drill into Kyo's head, that Kyo actually lets this just go. He takes it in, and then by the end of the episode, he's let it go.
After this, if he's able to truly be resolved and recover from this, there will be nothing really that Akito will be able to have over him.
Yeah,
there's nothing that he'll be able to pull out on him that's worse than this.
Right. But the difference is that that's not how these kinds of things work. Obviously, Kyo has a 2% of him that is still traumatized by the fact that his mother committed suicide
because of him.
His father drilled it into his head that it was because of him.
Yep.
And then for years before meeting Kazuma, that was what he believed.
Yep.
So it is not going to be solved because he had a great day with Akito.
Yeah, definitely
or
not.
a great summer necessarily with Toru.
Yep. There was even something in how the episode was shot that made me wonder if it was something where he saw his mother jump. I'm not sure if that was how much that was trying to be implied or whatever. Which would add a whole other layer to the trauma.
But look, the part also where where Kyo started talking about Toru after he's like, well, she's so good natured, it's actually a little scary. Really? Don't you think she's a little too perfect? I love this. This is such a cool way for your villain to be right in their monologue and actually have it be a pointed foreshadowing bit of maybe also Kyo having a moment in the future where he realizes where Toru is not perfect.
Sure.
Where she might actually be very stunted in certain areas.
Where maybe, once he's in that healthier place, which he really seems to be, this episode definitely shook that up.
This is basically the Yuki Kyo season of they're just moving these boys forward. They're giving them so much development.
And this was definitely a setback, but it's something where if he is then able to, in turn, be that for her, then...
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we know they're going to be. That's
right.
That's literally...
That's probably what the third season's going to be.
That's probably what the majority of the third season's going to be, yeah. Yeah. And in some ways, that's where this is probably going to get worse, is that Toru, by the end of this season, probably, is going to be in a very low place. I think she's going to be the one that eventually...
Yeah, that's right. This is still early in the second season.
Is very
Holy
early.
Shit.
Yeah. This is a 2-core season, yeah. But then the thing of where he's like, wait, how can you say these things? Now, what I love about this is from Akito's perspective, all he did was say, no, I deny that. How can you say these things? Because then he starts thinking in his head about that moment. And then he starts saying what she did.
Yeah.
Her hand, all this stuff, even so she didn't run away from me. Okay, no, this was all something he was talking about out loud. The way they put it into italics, he still would have been...
He was still communicating the information to Akito.
Yeah. Akito plugged...
Wait. He did the full-on child thing of listening.
Yeah.
That's worth its... That is gold.
That bit means so much to Akito's character as well.
Oh, yeah.
That means he's losing.
Yes.
In this battle right here, he's losing.
Yep.
That's why I think he was so emphatically pushing things back around to
I'm going to use every card at my
discussion.
Disposal to try and make you hurt.
Well, right. Yeah. But he basically kind of gave up, if you will, a little bit on the Toru situation until Kyo admitted that he didn't love her, and then went back on the mother kind of thing rather than doubling down on Toru. I think it's because he's like,
interesting.
Well,
sure.
I think...
Right. I can't actually...
I can't win a fight like that much. And even if, Akito, I would say, is probably intelligent enough to know that Kyo might be just lying to him. In fact, Akito's dysfunction, if you will, he seems to me like one of those people that just assumes everyone sees him in the best possible light, and everybody else sees each other as the way that he sees them.
Yeah.
So the idea is that he's got this extreme delusion of not grandeur, but the idea of but I've got the right perspective.
Right. That's
I'm
actually
seeing the world for the way it is.
Yeah. That's one of the most arrogant things that a person can do, and at the same time, it's crazy common, actually.
It's crazy common.
Because you always see yourself in the best possible light of okay, well, here's my explanation. I know why I did this thing, right?
Right.
And then with everyone else, it's just how it came across to you.
Right. It's actually potentially really interesting because if Akito is some divine being or what have you,
right,
it actually makes sense why he would potentially even think that way, because his power or his potential influence might literally give him an essence of that, but it's through a dark mirror, it's through a foggy window, it's through an isolated room that he then hears the sounds of it, the echoes, but he's not actually viewing the world and the people around him for the way they are. Yeah. So when he gets true perspective that's from another source, he's like, wait, this doesn't...
I have to patch up the hole in my little bubble.
Yeah, my worldview is collapsing. Yep. La. So I think this is amazing. Yeah. Because then it leads into, Kyo realizing how much it meant for him just that she was there.
Right.
Not that she wasn't scared. Not that she loved him or anything.
Right. Not that everything was suddenly better because she was there, but just that she was there with him in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh. And that's one of the, just as a little aside, right? Anytime someone is going through something really, really hard where you can't actually directly help them, because that is one of the most hard things to have to go through, where you really care about somebody and you can't actually help them, right? Yep. You can always be there with them, right? They might not want that all the time, right? But that is something that means so much.
So much. And it doesn't necessarily mean so much to them in that moment.
Sure. Yep.
They realize it sometimes 3 months later.
Right.
Kyo obviously had it mean a lot to him in that moment. That
Right.
was such a tender, sweet moment
Yep.
in season 1. Kyo is finding out that it means even more to him right now. Like it's something where it's getting double, tripled down on in terms of its added meaning.
Right. It's the whole thing of like when he was talking about what Cosmo said, and it's not that I didn't understand you back then, but I couldn't face that back then, right? You know,
Right. I can't
remember the exact.
I think he said I didn't want
way he
to
said it.
understand.
Right.
It's basically that whole thing of where when someone says something that's true and you don't accept it because of the way it's being said or the timing or just the emotional state that you're
in
at.
order to accept it, you would have to give something up that you're not willing to give up yet.
Right. And Kyo gave up on the idea that there was no hope. That's what he needed to give up on in order to take Kazuma's words
Right.
and actually accept it there. And in order to do that, he would have to see himself as worthy of being saved. Because you're not a murderer, Kyo.
No.
You're
Definitely
not responsible for your mother's death.
Yep.
There's shitty things that happened to you that you did not control, that are the reasons why your mother died. Those are real.
Yep.
Those need to be accepted. But that is not you.
Right.
That
It is
not
absolutely not your fault.
And it's really powerful that we got this scene here because it's just a literal, connection point to his thoughts that go into, back then I pretended I didn't understand, but I actually understood.
Yeah.
Right. I love what they're doing with Kyo as a character, but I want them to keep going.
Yep.
I want
Don't
the next
stop now.
episode. I want if we had the Yuki arc for like the first 8 episodes of this season, wonderful. Let's have another 8 episodes now for Kyo.
Hell yeah.
In some ways, though, like if they do even like 2 or 3, that's to me potential to where he might just tell Toru. Like he might just be.
I actually was kind of expecting him to tell her there at the beach.
I'm gonna make a prediction. Mid-season finale.
I think I'll take that action. I think so.
Kyo could actually confess to Toru.
I think that's a very good likelihood.
I think there's a possibility that she has no idea what to do with that, though.
Oh, totally.
I think it's really important. That Toru has her own like. Whoa!
She'll do her like derp face and arms flailing around of like, hey, what?
Right. Yeah, her defensive measures, if you will.
Right. Exactly.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. So I think we covered everything this episode.
I think so.
The only I'd say maybe other things is Shigure maybe. Shigure definitely was like, okay, this is it. Like,
yeah.
Like I think maybe there was a little moment of a subtle inference of the idea of Shigure being like, do you love Toru? It's like, you shut up, nothing will good have come of it anyway. And that's when he was saying basically like, oh, she's happy for you, huh? And kind of saying like, she loves you, right? And he's like, don't worry, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna jeopardize her by getting into a relationship with her. And then he's like, oh, so scary. Are you only nice to Toru-kun then? Basically doubling up. So are you, are you sure about that? And then, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, one of the other things two things that I noticed from this episode that was kind of nice is that Toru went back to the beach to specifically fix the sandcastle that was made that Rin had destroyed, which I was just like, okay, that's fun.
That was cool, yeah.
I like that.
Because she doesn't know that it wasn't the water or anything.
Right, exactly. But then, two, this one was a bit more curious. Kyo pieced together that apparently Akito had some ulterior motive for why he was letting Toru stay with the family.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, what are you scheming?
Like, one of the things that came to mind is, like, maybe he's planning on having Hattori wipe her memory afterwards, so that way they can experience the loss or something, Like, that would be a real dick punch.
No, I think that's very possible. That's very on the table.
Yeah?
Yeah, very much so. But we'll see on that. Did you get the vibe, potentially, that the scheming thing that Kyo picked up on is the idea that Shigure is using Akito by making Akito use his plans.
Like
it's the thing of where Shigure is like, yeah, I'm absolutely manipulating Akito.
Okay.
I have a goal. I have a desired outcome here.
Right.
Like he wants revenge, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah, it does definitely give me that vibe for Shigure.
What's basically the potential that Akito is kind of already wrapped around Shigure's finger, and the reason why Shigure is actually like, you know, potentially one of the more complicit people in this is that he's actively stirring up the drama to get an end to it.
Yep.
But it's the fact that he's seeing that ends justifies the means kind of thing. And
so far he's
but so far he's using others.
Right. And when I said so far he's right, I don't mean in the ends justifying the means thing. I mean in that it's actually going to go well.
It's actually working.
As opposed to him stirring it up and then it all goes to shit and you've caused more harm than you could have potentially stopped.
And that's where I think maybe Hattori was kind of this whole thing of like, you're enjoying this, aren't you? Is that Shigure...
I love it when a plan comes together.
Well, right. But Shigure is potentially giving off maybe too much of a vibe from Hattori that he's like, hey.
How much is this actually for the good of them versus
Exactly.
that you want to see Akito suffer because of whatever he maybe did to you in the past or something?
Right. But you don't necessarily care about the effects that happen in the meantime.
Right.
And I think that's where I'd say Shigure probably cares more than anybody, is that the reason why he's doing this is because he's, you know, thought about it. He's actually like come to the realization that I need to actually change things so much that this status quo ends.
Right.
But in order to do
and this
that,
is the
like,
only way I am able to because of the whole situation, you know.
Right, and that might be why he's playing Akito's lapdog, basically.
Right.
And the idea that Kyo picked up on the scheming side of things there, I never really got the picture from Akito
of being a schemer.
That he was a schemer.
Yeah, me neither. He felt very much like a he's, you know,
like a tantrum child.
Yeah, like he sees himself as being on the top of the hill. Like maybe the way that he was scheming is that he was thinking, I have to separate Kyo from Toru so I can get at Toru. But like, you know, like because
makes sense really.
Because the thing that I was thinking about with that is that maybe it's so that Hattori can actually go and wipe her memory, right? You know, that like if she's with somebody, they'll stop it, right?
Right.
But if she's by herself, then they can just go and whoop, you know, and then that's done. But you know, he seems to be so wrapped up in his own head that I almost am having trouble believing that he would think he needs to scheme. Right? The most scheming that I feel like he does is when he's directly interacting with somebody of how can I make them my slave, basically.
Or kind of be like, if I wag my tail enough in a specific way, will you do whatever I want, you know?
Yeah.
And that's where he feels almost a little bit like a Loki on the exterior. And that's why I feel like on the interior there's something like much more pained and much more like heartfelt, is that Shigure's too much. Like Shigure's almost playing too hard into this character.
Right, exactly.
That's why I'm like, Shigure, you're such a mystery, but I
weirdly enough trust him less and less as the show goes on.
Yes, I feel that, but I also feel like I kind of have to trust him, you know? Like I feel like compelled to.
Gotcha.
But this episode did bring up a couple things where Yuki was almost like about to stand up for Kyo, because he was like, wait, Shigure, did Akito really call for him?
Oh yeah.
And it's the thing of where he's like, you're not just doing this, you know, just for the sake of doing this. Like Akito actually wanted him. It felt like kind of the thing of where I know we always do what Akito says, but Akito is not literally micromanaging our lives, so we don't have to do, you know, this kind of stuff if he's not asking for it.
We've had people ignore summons to the mansion and stuff before, right?
Right.
So, you know, Yeah,
and I think that this is the play where Kyo is just kind of going along with this so that this doesn't lead to potentially any kind of negative repercussions for Toru. Because my ultimate fear is not of Akito doing something directly. It's the idea that he turns the family against Toru.
Right. Like Hattori wiping her memory or something.
Well, that's in some ways the most neutral.
Oh.
That does nothing to Toru. That basically just cleans
Gotcha.
her slate. She just doesn't have anyone at that
Right.
point.
Yeah, that's more of an attack on the rest of the family.
It's
than it is
attack
an
on the rest of the family,
Toru,
right?
yeah.
For Toru, what he could do is basically try and find some way to influence them to slowly just start shunning Toru.
Yeah, I don't think Akito's that powerful, but I could totally see him
I
wanting
don't think
to do that.
I don't think he is either.
Uh-huh.
But I think he could start leveraging things to where one by one he gets them on, some kind of thing like that.
One of the things,
but I think that's more also again a limitation of his power, is
right?
That he doesn't micromanage them because he can't
directly, literally control them,
right?
And that's why he needs to talk to them and do.
That's why he needs to summon them and do this whole
exactly.
thing there. It's always a one-on-one deal, so
right? But one of the things I wouldn't be surprised by if when we end up getting that Toru focus, that's when Akito is specifically going after her, because a lot of the stuff that we've gotten with Yuki and Kyo has been tied pretty closely to them needing to basically have their confrontations with Akito and survive, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too surprised if that was something that ended
coming up next.
Coming up, when Toru gets her focus arc,
Right, but I think that that's either going to be near the end of this season. Like, I still don't think that's coming anytime soon.
Or in the early third season.
Or, literally in the third season. Yeah. At this point in terms of where the pacing is going.
Right. She is the main character, so it would be kind of fitting for her arc to be the...
most drawn out.
The most drawn out and the one that goes up right up until the end. Yeah.
Yeah, or we just have different types of arcs, where Season 2, it's a different kind of thing. And then Season 3, they have some kind of hard, powerful, really horrible, cliffhanger end for Season 2 that then leads into a new kind of status quo in Season 3.
Something that I realized I have never actually complimented this show on, that I really feel like it needs some praise for, is the fact that it actually doesn't do the traditional, or not traditional, but it doesn't go for the hard arc structure formula. And that's something that there's I really get a lot out of that, because then I don't actually know who is going to get character growth. And then it feels like it can be more based on the environmental circumstances, organic choices and everything, rather than we're not focusing on them right now, so they're going to take a back seat, right?
Right.
And so I never realized until now that I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because it can feel like any episode, who knows, we could get growth with just about anyone.
Yeah, and in some ways that's the best way to use an ensemble cast.
Sure.
Because you shouldn't feel the meta of the ensemble cast too much.
Right. Oh, we won't be able to see this person for another half season, when they'll be able to get an arc again.
We are literally counting through a checklist right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's kind of what Season 1 had a little bit, but that was because those were introductions, not actual developments truly for all the characters.
Right.
If anything, that was maybe the part that made first season so impressive, was that they managed introductions and character growth within the core cast.
Right, exactly, at the same time, yeah.
All right. That was a doozy. But y'all, there we go. Thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon and get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.